The Premier League season concluded almost 2 weeks ago, yet there has still been a busy Newcastle United agenda over the past fortnight. Rafa Benitez's future is the topic which is intriguing most supporters, while the club's prospective transfer budget and the release of the accounts this week have also been discussed by supporters. We gave Newcastle fans the opportunity to ask Chronicle Live's NUFC writer Chris Waugh their pressing questions in a live blog queue. Question: do you think Rafa will sign a new contract? Answer: this is the big question. And, unfortunately, I don't know for certain either way, but I will offer my opinion on it. I very much expect Benitez to be in the St. James's Park dugout for the 2018-19 campaign and for him to see out the last 12 months of his deal, because he has never broken a contract before and I do not see any real viable clubs for him to move to this summer. In terms of signing a new deal, my own personal theory is that Benitez will wait to see if substantive progress is made both in terms of transfers and off the field this summer before he commits to a long-term contract. Benitez wants to stay, but he also wants to know the club are ambitious and that he can target trophies on Tyneside in the future. Cup strategy NUFC Q. It's been reported that Rafa will be given a competitive budget. In what ballpark do you think it'll be? Are you more optimistic over an agreement now Rafa has decided to remain for, at least, another year? A. In terms of being more optimistic about Benitez signing a long-term contract, I refer you to my earlier answer about the situation. It is a complex one, and I think he wants to see substantive proof the club match his ambitions before committing on the budget, and that has formed a key part of the discussions which have taken place between Benitez's representatives and the club over the last 5 weeks or so. Mike Ashley promised Benitez could spend every penny generated by the club in a statement after the Chelsea game, but what has frustrated the Spaniard is that he was not given a specific figure as to how much that would be. Benitez wants a set figure he knows he can spend, and then be guaranteed the ability to reinvest any funds generated from player sales too. I know that Benitez's camp laughed off suggestions he would be given anywhere close to £70 million this summer, but I'd like to think Newcastle would at least match the £46 million net spend from last year. They didn't buy anyone permanently in January for a start, and that squad needs some serious investment. At this moment in time though, I don't know the exact budget United are likely to be working from, as it is still a point of discussion. Q. What are Rafa's order of priorities between 1. Refreshing the first-team squad, 2. Refreshing the under-23 setup in terms of youth players and coaches, 3. Improving training facilities, 4. Having more control over all playing matters. I will start by saying the priority for Benitez is always to improve Newcastle's first-team squad. He often compares a football club to a train, with the first team representing the engine and the other departments being the carriages. In his opinion, if you make the first team squad strong, the other carriages will be in a healthier position, too. Therefore I believe ensuring he has a competitive first team who can challenge for trophies and a top 8 finish is the priority. But his discussions with the club are multifaceted because he does want to see improvements elsewhere too. More than a year ago Benitez presented plans to the club to upgrade the academy, under-23 setup and training ground, but they haven't been fully implemented as of yet. He wants to know why. In Benitez's view, those other elements will help augment the first team. At the moment, the academy and under-23s aren't acting a pathway for players to bolster the first-team squad. He wants them reformed so they can be, because then, in the long run, United will not need to spend as much on transfer as they can produce their own players. In terms of having more control over playing matters, Benitez has complete authority over playing matters, but I'd say he wants greater autonomy over football-related matters. He was promised that when he first arrived in March 2016, but there are certain areas he wants his influence to grow in. One area is how Newcastle's transfer budget is spent. Let me stress that Benitez chooses which players are bought and sold, and he has never had a player forced upon him or sold against his will. But Benitez wants to be handed a specific transfer budget and then given the freedom to spend it how he wants. If he wants to blow the whole kitty on a top-class striker, then so be it. He wants that to be his responsibility, and he will live or die by those decisions. At the moment, transfers of more than £12 million need to be ratified by Ashley at the very top. He wants that to change. Why isn't Rafa signing a new deal? Is it about money or control? What will it take? Is it stable to refuse a new contract, enter the final year and be taken seriously about his love for our club and its long-term future? I have tried to address the Benitez contract situation before, but the last part of this question is an interesting one. In my opinion, there is no doubt Benitez has a deep connection with NUFC as a club, but more importantly the Magpies fanbase. However, he is also a born winner and he wants to protect his own career. Remember, Benitez had been Real Madrid boss 2 months before he moved to St. James's Park. This is a former Champions League and 2-time La Liga winner we're talking about. Although Benitez wants to stay at Newcastle long-term and make them into genuine contenders for European football and trophies, he is not prepared to do so if he simply does not believe it is possible. Ambition is key to Benitez. He stayed when Newcastle were relegated and had a year in the Championship, then he has spent a season fighting against the drop. For a world-class manager like Benitez, that is a long time to go without competing for major honors. If he believes he can win things in the future with Newcastle, he will stay. But he will not commit his long-term future until he receives those assurances. Will Rafa get full control of all matters to do with players in and out and everything on the playing side? Ever since Benitez has been at the club, he has had full autonomy over the playing side at Newcastle. In terms of transfers, he has also never had a player forced on him against his will, or had a player sold against his wishes. Over the last 2 years, Benitez has also been allowed to restructure the recruitment team. Chief scout Graham Carr left last year, and his own team have identified those targets. He would like greater control over how his transfer budget is spent, in that he wants to be able to buy and sell players as he chooses within a set budget, rather than have to wait for approval on deals above a certain value, though. Do you think it's a realistic possibility that we will break our transfer record this summer? If Benitez gets his way, then yes. The Spaniard would like to sign a top-level striker and admitted himself earlier this month that, in order to make that happen, the transfer record would likely need to go. The transfer market has inflated immeasurably in the last couple of years, and forwards in particular cost a premium. However, as I have already mentioned, Benitez has had to go through several layers of bureaucracy over the last year or so whenever he has aimed to spend a substantial fee on one player. Until that changes, the transfer record may stand, though Benitez is pushing for it to go this summer if he can lure the right striker to Tyneside. Is the board going to actually back Rafa or just do as they did last time and not deliver when they say they will? The club themselves are adamant they have backed Benitez, as Charnley said himself, but I do understand that fans do not believe that is the case, given that there have been 3 transfer windows in succession when the Spaniard feels promises have not been delivered. Newcastle did have a net spend of £46 million last summer, and did have an outlay of more than £11 million following relegation, but many fans would argue that doesn't mitigate years of underinvestment. I do think Benitez will be given money to spend this summer, but I don't think it'll be anywhere close to a war chest. He'll have to bolster it with player sales too, and reduce the wage bill. As I say, I expect money will be spent, but I don't expect Newcastle to splash the cash. I think it'll be more reserved than that. 2. What is the main goal for Ashley? I understand it's winning a cup and finishing as high as possible, as said by Lee Charnley, yet the club is still on the market and seem unwilling to match their own ambitions with investment in the squad and facilities. What do you think? This is a very good question, and one I'm sure many other fans have been posing. I am not going to pretend I know Ashley's precise thinking, because I'd be stretching the truth if I did. I'm not sure anyone knows his thinking. But my view on any potential takeover is that Ashley will only sell up once he receives an offer which leaves him with a healthy profit. Otherwise, as long as Newcastle are a Premier League club, I think he's quite content that he will not lose a vast amount of money and will continue to be able to advertise Sports Direct through the club. In terms of competing for a trophy, for Ashley the priority is and will always be Premier League survival first and foremost, but if a cup was to arrive with Benitez at the helm, it only increases the profile and potential value of the club. Ashley is a businessman, and every decision he makes is taken with his business interests in mind. They don't always appear logical decisions, but he is an unorthodox operator. Ashley does not want to put any further money into the club, but he does want them to achieve success through their own means. That will only increase NUFC's value, and the ability for him to market Sports Direct globally. That, I think, is his logic. But, as I say, I rarely understand his decisions either. Q. Can someone answer why the club said they lost £90 million when the accounts were released last week? Further inspection shows they conveniently left off the £50 million we recouped from Sissoko, Janmaat and Wijnaldum. Meaning, we actually only lost £45 million. First of all, let me admit I am not a financial expert, but I have been through the accounts with financial experts, and they assure me that the figures shown within them are accurate. In terms of the figures in terms of loss, the club made a £90.9 million operating loss, but a £41.3 million loss after tax. The reason why the full amount of the Moussa Sissoko sale, £30 million, Georginio Wijnaldum sale, £25 million, and Daryl Janmaat sale, £8 million, are not included is because the club did not receive those full fees during the 2016-17 financial year. Instead, just £6 million was received for Sissoko and £5.5 million for Wijnaldum. The payments were spread over a further 4 years. Therefore Newcastle received another £6 million and £5.5 million from each respective deal last summer, and will receive the next installment this year. So, yes, Newcastle did make more than £50 million from the sale of those 3 players, but not in cash terms that year. Instead, the rest of those fees will be received in the coming years. Q. Can you ask how the club can spin last season's £42 million loss compared to seasonal championship club Brighton's £39 million loss as a reason why we couldn't compete in market with them last season? This is another fair question, and one which is not a straightforward one to answer. One thing I would say is that Newcastle's huge wage bill, the highest ever seen in the EFL, was almost 3 times Brighton's. Also, I have not seen Brighton's accounts in any depth I'm afraid, so I can't make a fully comprehensive comparison. But given Newcastle's wage bill compared to the Seagulls, a higher percentage of the Premier League TV money is absorbed by Newcastle's wages than occurs at Brighton. Despite that, however, I do agree that Newcastle should be able to start competing in the transfer market with other Premier League clubs, especially those who were promoted with them in 2017. Newcastle generate higher revenues from commercial deals and match-day income than the likes of Brighton and Huddersfield, and, even after a year of substantial losses in the second tier, they should be able to invest this summer. Catching up with more established Premier League sides like West Ham United and Leicester City, who have several unbroken years of being a Premier League club, may take a little longer, but by next summer at the latest Newcastle should be financially competitive in the market as long as they retain their top-flight status. Q. What's the latest with Martin Dubravka? Is the hold-up Rafa's future still, or is the main focus to offload Matt Sells and/or Chancel Mbemba first? A. My understanding is that the deal is a fairly simple one to complete. Newcastle need only activate the £4 million option to buy clause, with a contract already agreed with Dubravka, but I think the Benitez situation is holding things up. That is just a theory, I don't know that for certain, but all parties are keen for it to go ahead, even if Dubravka appears to have suggested his move depends on Benitez staying. I think this one should be completed soon enough. Q. Lakey Pass linked Newcastle to PSG goalkeeper Alphonse Areola over a possible move. What's the thinking here? A. Both Newcastle and Dubravka are keen for his loan deal to be made permanent, and it should only be a matter of time before that happens. Seemingly once Benitez's future is resolved, that transfer should happen. In terms of the links with Paris Saint-Germain's Alphonse Areola, and with Reims Edouard Mendy, they are interesting. Areola is someone Benitez tried to sign last summer, and also looked at in January before opting for Dubravka once it became clear the PSG goalkeeper would be too expensive. As for Mendy, it is a new name I had not heard myself as a possible signing for Newcastle until yesterday. Benitez still wants Dubravka, but there is a suggestion behind the scenes that a second goalkeeper could be recruited this summer. Freddie Woodman is likely to head out on loan again. Sells is close to being sold, but that leaves Rob Elliott and Karl Darlow. Elliott is happy to fight for his place, but if Darlow wants first-team football, he may depart. That would then lead Benitez to seek another goalkeeper. I think whoever came in alongside Dubravka, if that was to happen, would compete with the Slovak for the number 1 jersey. Benitez wants competition in all positions. Even as impressive as Dubravka has been, he wants the goalkeeper to be pushed by a rival. Q. Can you tell us what the strongest transfer link is? A. The easy choice here would be Dubravka, but that would be a cop-out answer. Instead, I'm going to go for Hoffenheim's Andrej Kramaric. Newcastle want a striker, and he is someone they have scouted after his successful 2 seasons in Germany, which followed a poor spell in England with Leicester City. Even though I have named Kramaric, it is my understanding he is just one name on a more than 50-strong list of striker targets Benitez's recruitment team have identified. The Spaniard is desperate for a frontline striker to arrive, but who exactly it will be I cannot say with any certainty at the moment. Q. Will Rafa Benitez go back in for Tammy Abraham? A. Last summer, Benitez was very keen to bring Abraham to Newcastle from Chelsea on loan. The Spaniard even had the framework of a loan deal agreed, but for a variety of reasons, the striker eventually ended up at the Liberty Stadium instead. Abraham did not have a stellar season for Swansea City. He scored just 5 goals in 31 Premier League appearances, and Chelsea may consider sending him out on loan again in 2018-19. Benitez is hoping to recruit a proven, top-flight scorer, which Abraham would not be considered, but the 20-year-old could be targeted as a backup option. Given the need for Abraham to play regular first-team football, however, then that will cast doubt on him coming to Newcastle as a second-choice forward. I'd say it's unlikely, but certainly one United will look at given their positive relationship with Chelsea. Q. Why were the topics discussed with Lee Charnley not more wide-ranging? Why were questions not answered that Chronicle Live have suggested should be asked in the past? A. The queries about the Q. We have put all the questions listed, regarding Justin Barnes' role at the club, potential training ground developments and changes to the academy, both to the club and to Benitez. They have been sent via email as a list of questions, and they have also been asked at press conferences. On this occasion, Charnley agreed to give an interview about Newcastle's accounts, and the topics for discussion were limited to that. We will continue to keep asking the club questions going forward and we will endeavour for answers. Getting Charnley to speak on the record about the accounts was a start, given this is his first on-the-record interview with the local media in more than 3 years. But we will endeavour for further on-the-record interviews in the future, when such questions can hopefully be answered.